Welcome everyone to Make Your Day Richer. I'm your host, Richard Wilmore. Today we're playing Market Move or HR Myth.
Woo!
Let's meet our contestant to play this game. Contestant, what's your name and where are you from?
Hey there, I am Becky Drozdz. I own Guerrilla HR, which is a human resources and compensation consulting firm.
And where is that located?
Right here in Indian Land, South Carolina. But I can serve clients all across the country.
That's what I was going to ask, so you answered that. So that's perfect. Also, the craftiest person you'll ever meet. Where's my... Made this.
Made this.
We have mugs around here somewhere that you've made. We have all kinds of stuff here.
I can't help myself. I have to craft and then I have to give it all away because...
Yes, because why not?
Why not?
And we're trying to get her to start an Etsy account, but that's...
Not enough time. Not enough time in the day for that.
Yeah. Well, you'll come back and we'll do a craft for something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you ready to play Market Move or HR Myth?
You know I am.
All right. In front of you is a paddle that says Market Move on one side, HR Myth on the other. I'm going to give you some scenarios. You have to tell me if it's a market move or an HR myth and maybe why you say that.
Okay.
Okay? We have 3 rounds, 4 questions in each round. In between each round, I've got some questions for you that you don't...
You've already lost me at the instructions, but I'm just going to go with it.
Go with it. Our first round is the compensation jungle. Are you ready?
This is my favorite.
Here we go. Is this a market move or an HR myth? Salary history is the best predictor of a new hire's future performance.
That is such a myth. That is total trash. Past pay does not mean somebody's at market. It doesn't mean that it's competitive for where they are now. It doesn't mean it's competitive for the skills that they have. There's so many changes with cost of labor. Do not base anything on somebody's past salary history.
Done. This is why she has her own podcast, Guerrilla HR podcast. Number 2, ready? Discussing pay with coworkers is legally protected for most private sector employees.
That is very true. Yes. So under the National Labor Relations Act, most employees can talk about wages. It's considered protected concerted activity. So if you have a handbook or something that says you can't talk about pay, you probably need to come and talk to me or somebody else and get rid of that so that you are compliant.
Ready for number 3?
Yes.
Total rewards includes more than just the base salary. It includes things like time and autonomy.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Total rewards. So market move for sure. Total rewards. I put it into 5 buckets. So you have your comp, you have your benefits, you have your work-life effectiveness, you have performance management and employee development.
There you go.
You need it all. You need it all. I mean, you still got to have good base pay, or the other things don't necessarily matter quite as much, especially in this day and age. But yeah, total rewards, huge. You got a lot of flexibility when you're figuring out what you're going to offer employees.
All right. Final question in round number 1. Offering a $100,000 range for a single job title is an effective way to stay agile.
I'm going to say that's a myth. So just because you have a big range, it doesn't mean you're really going to pay for that. So you might have a job and at the lowest level, somebody like brand new in career, they might be at that low end, where somebody who's like a VP or a director, they might be at that high end. But as an organization, you got to know what you're looking for. So just having a huge range, that's really not going to help you.
It's an HR myth.
It's a myth. Did I say myth? Oh, I was making sure. Yeah, total myth.
Yes. That's the end of round 1. How do you feel like you did?
I feel amazing.
I feel like you aced it. I've got a couple questions for you outside of the game.
Okay. Whew, I can relax.
Yes, you can relax, and I think you might know these answers as well. You've had an extensive HR career before starting Guerrilla HR. Mm-hmm. What was the specific Guerrilla moment where you realized the traditional HR model was broken?
You know, I can't put it into one moment. I think that it's really a collection of all of my different experiences, both good and bad. So I worked for really small organizations, and then I worked for some huge global publicly traded organizations. But what I saw is that often there's a disconnect between like what's really happening versus what is happening at like a strategic planning level, or sometimes people making the rules when it comes to employees. And so I started Guerrilla HR to kind of try to change that, because like it's modeled after guerrilla warfare. So small irregular groups of people can have a huge difference. And I saw that throughout my career, and that's where I really wanted to focus on like let's help people do the things that make sense for them.
Yeah. Do you have a minimum number of employee organization that you'll work with? What are your parameters for who you like to work with?
If you have an employee, I can work with you.
Okay.
Or if you're thinking about hiring an employee, I can work with you.
Should work with them first, right? I would think.
Yeah, if you're looking to fill a
Yeah.
position, especially if it is your first and you're like, well, I don't really know what's going on in the market. And of course, what we'll do is we'll look at the market and see what's competitive. But then, of course, I totally understand things have to be affordable and sustainable. So it's figuring out, again, what makes sense within your organization. Who do you want to be as an employer?
Okay. How about for the savvier workers out there? What is the biggest mistake they make when using found on Google data to negotiate their salaries or any of that?
Yeah. So there's a ton of data out there, but not all data is created equal. So that's where the problem comes in is that sometimes it's not necessarily valid or statistically sound. And so you could go out and let's say you look at like an HR manager job, you might find anything from 65,000 to 165,000. And the difference is because they're looking at a title and they're not looking at duties and responsibilities. So if you have nothing else, by all means, look, I don't, say like, don't ever look at it, but you just really have to figure out where is it coming from? Who's reporting it? Is it employers? Is it validated? So there are just a lot of questions.
Okay. All right. You ask a lot of questions on your podcast, the Guerrilla HR podcast, which I love. What have you learned?
How could you not?
How could you not? Available wherever you get your podcasts. What have you learned from your guests, from doing research for the podcast? What have you learned?
I think the biggest thing is that I see people want others to succeed. And I think that there is a misnomer in the world of HR that you're like the police at work, right? And that's not the intent. That's not how it should be at all. But what I've seen just from talking to so many different people, from business owners to other consultants and people who write books on leadership, is that, really we're all looking for a way to help people be successful, which is going to make organizations successful.
Yeah. Okay. The Guerrilla HR podcast available every other Monday, wherever you get your podcast. Let's take a look at a clip from the latest episode.
And one of the beauties of turning complaints into requests is we're empowering our employees to actually fix some of those problems. Now, you have to follow through on it, and sometimes the requests aren't feasible, and sometimes it's like, okay, you've really nailed something amazing here, and it could be, how a line is set up. It could be very specifically of where we stock certain materials, right? Which has very minimal, dollar impact and impact to the flow. But if it, has a huge impact on the folks that are working there, it could be ergonomically, it could be they're not walking, 100 feet across every time. It's literally right next to them. Now, all of a sudden, you get a couple of those wins and they're like, oh, I can influence change here. Now we've just empowered them.
All right. Are you ready for round number 2?
I'm ready.
All right. Category is the compliance and culture clash.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
Oh, bring it on.
Number 1, including the salary range on a job posting increases the quality of the applicant pool. Is that market move or HR myth?
Ooh. So I'm going to say it's a market move because I think there's a lot of good reasons to put a salary range on the job posting. One, it just sets expectations, right? So if a candidate out there is saying like, I simply can't take less than 50,000 and you're paying 45, you know that, right? You know it up front. You also get a lot more applicant activity if you post a range. Even if your range isn't amazing, even if you're below market and you know it, there are some people who they won't even look at it if you don't. And part of that is because it's driving your culture, right? So if you say like, hey, we support, pay for performance and we have really competitive pay. If it's so competitive, well, why don't you tell me what it is? The thing I don't know necessarily is like the quality of candidate. I would say you will get more. But quality wise, I think it could be hit or miss.
Yeah, because you could end up being the person like, well, I want to make 125,000.
Right.
You're looking for just who's paying the most.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2, unlimited PTO is a win for the employee and costs the company nothing.
Ooh, these are like
They're getting more
in the middle.
complicated.
They are. So unlimited PTO is fascinating. So from the perspective of cost, organizations like it. And here's why. Different states have different rules about what you do with PTO, whether it's given up front, whether you accrue it. And so for some organizations, if you accrue PTO and you have this balance, you have to pay that out. And so if you terminate somebody, and there are different rules and, what ifs and things around it, but often or generally, if you have an accrual, you would have to pay that out. And so that can really add up for larger organizations. And so if they go to a unlimited PTO model, there's no tracking or record keeping of these accrued balances. So it can be cost effective in that way. What's interesting though, is that for a lot of organizations that do actually offer it, there's a trend, and I don't have this specific number in my head, or source in my head, but we often see people take around 3 weeks of time off. So it's not something that people are abusing. I think it's great. Like if somebody legit has a need and work's getting done and you can balance, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Job descriptions should be updated every time a role is vacated rather than just reused. Is that an HR myth or a move?
In the middle. And here's why I say that. So when you are filling a vacancy, that is a fantastic time to update job descriptions. Job descriptions are important for a variety of reasons, right? Like not just for the candidate you're going for, but there's also some compliance pieces that are tied to that job description. So that is a good time to do it. The caveat I will say is if you have lots of people that are in that same role, are you adding to the team filling in that same role, or are you creating something different? So you don't want to muddy necessarily, is that really what you're doing? Is that role the same? Is it different? But great time to evaluate and ask those questions.
Okay, good. And now it makes me realize we need a triangle paddle.
I know.
One with like in between.
I need a spinner.
Okay, I'll get it. Well, next time you're back, we'll make sure that's, you'll probably be the one to make it. All right. Final question.
Probably.
Round number 2. Managers are the best people to determine their own team's salary increases without HR data.
You know that is a myth, right? So here's the thing. Some people think it should be like manager, like they have the day-to-day insight. But you also need some guidance from HR because you need to know what's happening with the cost of labor. Have jobs moved at different paces? You also have to think about, again, budget considerations. It really should be a partnership between those who can speak to day-to-day performance if you say that you are paying for performance. If you're not and you're giving a general wage increase, well, maybe not the best practice, but then you can just do it. But really a partnership is the best way to do it. So you're looking at trends in the market along with individual performance that a manager can speak to.
Okay. That's the end of round number 2.
I'm loving this.
I think you did very well that round as well.
We didn't talk about it, but I assume if I win, cash prize will be deposited in my account this afternoon.
Yes. Yeah, it takes 3 to 5 business days usually.
Just making sure.
Yes, but it's a big one, and everybody in the non-existent studio audience also gets a Guerrilla HR mug that we love and enjoy around here.
Well, for all of you not right here, I'm going to win that mug for you.
Okay, ready? You have a big workshop coming up March 25th and another one in April. Can you tell everybody about that? Who should be in the room?
Yes.
And where they sign up?
So I am hosting, really it's HR 101, so an introduction to compliance and best practices for small business owners and for not-for-profits as well. So what I find is that some of those organizations, they don't need HR because they're too small for it, but they still have some compliance challenges that they need to be aware of. And so it's a free workshop. Come get just some of the basics of things that you need to be doing, and then you can also take it as an opportunity to ask some of those questions that are hanging out there.
And where do they register?
They can register on my website, which is guerrilla-hr.com.
And speaking of big money being deposited, how much is it to go?
It is $3.99.
Free.
It is $0. Yeah. It is free. I do that because I really care about this community that I live in, and I want businesses and people to be successful. So it is an introduction for people to come and just hear what they need to know so that they can thrive in their business.
Perfect. What's one old school HR habit that is currently costing this area businesses the most money?
Well, I think there are a lot of things. I think one thing that ends up costing money is not evaluating the market. So in this particular area where we are, we're Charlotte Metro, but we're not. Some people would say like, no, this is Lancaster, this is South Carolina, like we're outside of that. But look at your neighbors. How many people are commuting to Charlotte for work? We are, in fact, part of Charlotte Metro when we think about it from a labor standpoint. And so I think that that's one shortcoming, is that we need to recognize where we're competing for talent in this area. And if we're not competitive, what can happen is that you'll see some turnover and you'll have more churn. So sometimes organizations will say, well, I can't afford to pay that little bit more, but then they'll have some turnover. And so it's like, can you afford not to? If then you have not only, an individual that leaves, but then you have the recruiting costs and you have the lost productivity and you have the stress on the other people who have to pick up the slack. So I think that's probably one of the biggest.
I like that answer. When you're talking about pay equity, what is the one thing you wish the general public understood about the math behind the curtain?
Oh, pay equity is like, it's such a big topic, and it can be equity from a lot of different perspectives. Even like when you first asked about looking at past pay, right?
Mhm.
If you had somebody who was low in their pay and you're like, well, I can just keep them low because I knew where they were. Well, then you're perpetuating potentially a pay equity issue. Maybe it was through no fault of their own. The other thing that happens a lot where we see equity issues creep in, again, completely unintentionally, is through compression. So what happens is sometimes the cost of labor, what you have to pay for a job, goes up. And you have employees who have been there for a long time doing a good job, maybe bumping along at 3% per year, but something has changed and that job is worth more. So what happens is you have candidates that you're trying to hire asking for more money than your good long-term employees. And so that's another one where that compression issue really becomes an equity issue of, are you externally competitive? And then also internally, how do people stack up against each other?
I don't know what half of what she just said means, but I'm assuming that I'm smarter because of it. Yes.
What that means is if you have people and you're like, I'm not sure what she just said, then just talk to me and we'll look at your situation.
Yeah, I bet that happens a lot in really large organizations where people have been there for a couple decades.
Yes.
And then you're bringing in new people and it's a completely things that were happening in the 80s or not 90s. Decades. It's not happening now. And then you start getting resentment and
And of course we do have, there is a wage gap that is based on things like gender and race and ethnicity, and the data supports that. Do I think it's necessarily intentional discrimination that's causing that? No, but I think it's some of these other practices that we put into place that are causing that to happen, and it's creating and not doing anything to resolve that issue, which is why we need to go through and look at everybody.
There we go. Before we head into the final round, 3 rounds. Yes.
See, I wasn't the only one confused.
Final round, we're going to take another look at a clip from the podcast. Take a look.
I think it's the most underrated HR book of the last 20 years. I really mean that. Called Chasing Stars, and the subtitle is The Myth of Talent and the Portability of Performance. And it basically shows the idea that we find the person who was successful in one job and we plug him into our place and they're going to replicate the same thing. A Harvard business guy, Boris Groysberg, he put that to the test and found out no, it really doesn't work like that. And he's got some fascinating reasons as to why.
All right, are you ready for round number 3?
Let's do it.
All right, it's called the equity and efficiency round. Number 1, a cost of living raise is exactly the same thing as a merit raise.
This is, such a great question. Cost of living and cost of labor are 2 different things. So the cost of living is the basket of goods that it takes to sustain your life. So that's your rent or your mortgage, that's gas, that's food, that's utilities, that's your cell phone, that's all of those things. Cost of labor is what it takes to get somebody in a job and keep them in it. And so when you're looking at giving adjustments and increases, if you're doing it based on merit, then you're looking at, the third piece of that, which is we are rewarding based on performance. And so in order to do that, you have to be measuring performance. I have a lot of employers that like to say like, we reward performance, we do merit. And I'm like, great, what are the, evaluation scores look like? How are you doing? Are you doing annually, doing something quarterly? Like, what do you got for me? Like, let's take a look at this. And they might be like, well, sometimes we do, some managers are good, some aren't. Like, if you're saying you're giving a merit increase, you've got to be evaluating the merit to reward.
And not just it's another year so that you get an increase.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will also add to that there are people who do a combination. And in the past, I would have said COLA is a 4-letter word, and I don't like it because I would have said like, well, why just give people something like if they're not, working for it. But at the same time, when we look at the economy and we look at prices and, just how many people are struggling, I've totally changed my tune on that. And I think it's okay to look at, let's have some kind of general wage increase that might directly be tied to cost of living, or it might be some portion of cost of living, and then have a differentiator for merit on top of that.
Okay. I have to remember, because I just came up with a question that I want to ask you when this round is over that I don't know if you'll know the answer to, but I feel like you would have an opinion on. Number 2.
I can make something up anyway.
Number 2, remote work has permanently decoupled salary from geographic location for all industries.
I'm going to say that one's a myth as well. So geo is such an interesting question. So when I work with an employer to talk about like what's competitive for their area or who they want to be as an employer, the question I ask is, where do you recruit people from and where do you lose people to? And so if you have people that are working remote, I ask the question, is it because they want to, you want them to? It could make a difference, right? Because you could say like, this is my headquarters, my flag in the sand. This is where we, base our operation out of, and that's what I'm going to use for comp. Or you could say, I can't get the people I need in some of the skills here, or I don't care where they are, but I know that there's another geo that has people with that resource that I need, and you may have to pay for it. So it's not a one size fits all.
Okay. How about this one? You can pay someone less because they are passionate about the nonprofit's mission.
I'll just leave this here. Okay. So not-for-profits are really interesting. So not-for-profits, the difference is in what they do with the revenue that they make, right? They're not just feeding it they don't have stockholders or shareholders. And so it's not that they're not making in money, it's the way that they use that money. And so I say that every organization, even a not-for-profit, has to make a decision about how they want to pay. It does not mean that you can't pay a competitive wage or that you couldn't pay a living wage if that's what you choose to do. I understand that you may have some different scrutiny because you're collecting funds and working from donors and things like that. But to simply say like, oh, people care about this mission, that's why we're going to pay less, is not going to be enough. It's part of it for sure. But think about back to that earlier question on total rewards is more than comp. You may have to look at like what other buckets in total rewards can you fill that might take the place because you are using your dollars differently.
Great answer. Final question in this round. Transparency is the best guerrilla tactic for retaining top tier talent. Market move or HR myth?
Market move. I love transparency. Like, here's the thing. If you have a situation, like whether it's pay, whether it's in your hiring, whether it's layoffs, whatever it is, if you don't tell your employees what's happening, and I don't mean every little dirty detail, I don't mean to that level, but if you don't tell people what's going on, they're going to make up their own story.
Yeah. And
that story that they're making up and then sharing amongst your coworkers and your staff is probably not what's really happening. So I do think transparency is huge. You've got to just kind of let people know what's happening. When it comes to pay, maybe you don't tell what everybody's making. Maybe you're not necessarily sharing ranges for every single position, but people want to understand, how is their pay determined? Does it give them confidence in it? People who understand how they're paid are much more likely to say that they're paid fairly. So that's where the transparency piece comes in. Just, know who you are as an organization and share that with people.
Yeah. That's the end of the game.
Oh my God.
I think you won.
Did I win?
The big full transparency, no cash prize. You won. Congratulations.
You know what? I'll take the prize.
Yeah,
I'll take the prize.
They all won by
Yes.
having you, and they've learned. I do have a couple more questions for you.
Hit me with it.
My question that I wanted before. What is your response when people or organizations or hiring, whatever, say that they can't afford, if they pay more, let's say restaurant workers, that then everything becomes more expensive. Food becomes more expensive at the restaurant. We have to charge more to pay people more.
So like how much time
do
are we
you
going
want
to
a
spend here?
seat for this one?
So my gut reaction is that's BS. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, I will say that there's a difference between maybe a large chain where at the higher levels, they have these very deep pockets and how that filters down versus like a small local restaurant that is just, one small restaurant and they truly are in that local space. I do think that you can look at, evaluate all of your costs and then look for ways to create efficiencies so that you can pay. There are organizations, there are small companies in the US that have done it. I was in this amazing little bakery in Raleigh. I wish I could remember the name, but anyway, great little bakery. And they pay a living wage and they're very proud of that. And they talk about how they do it. And they display statistics on their board about their pay and about what's happening in their local economy and what's happening locally as far as need goes. And so even a small local place, it can be done.
And I love the transparency of that,
Yes.
of them explaining to
Yes.
the customers.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. As workers become more data savvy, where do you see the relationship between HR and employees in 5 years?
So I think it's definitely changing. I think the hard part is kind of like the comp piece of it. There's a ton of info out there, but is it right? And are you connecting it to everything, right? Like if you look at some Department of Labor regulations and you read one paragraph, you might be like, yeah, I can totally do this. But it's like, oh, but you need to keep going because there's another paragraph that's like, but if this is the case, you can't do that. So I think there's a ton of info, and I think employees are savvy and they can find good things. But I think that caution, because you still may need some HR that can help bridge those gaps and put those pieces together.
Okay. The name of this is obviously Make Your Day Richer. What's one way that an employee can make their day richer, or their work or their environment richer, that doesn't have to do with their pay?
For sure. So I think one of the things is just thinking about the things that you can control in your day. Like you might have days where you're like, I hate this job. It's horrible. I don't want to be here. Who hasn't had those days, right? But I think what's important is that there are elements of the work that you can control. Like, and it might be something small, but say, hey, this is a piece that I own. I made this decision, and make your day better like that.
That's perfect. What's the best way that people can connect with you out there?
They can visit my my website, check out my website, which is guerrilla-hr.com, watch my podcast, shoot me an email, give me a call. You can find me all the ways.
Okay, good. Becky, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rich.
And congratulations on your big win.
Woo!
There you go. That is the show today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.